So like any normal person, I just so happen to have a freezer full of ribeye fat. And there's only one thing I think we can do here. Let's make some burgers.
As we start with some meat. I have a slab of chuck here. This would make killer burgers just on its own. There is usually always a balanced amount of fat in it to just grind it up regularly and make patties with. However, since I'm a bit of a madman sometimes when it comes to burgers, I also happen to have a freezer full of these. These were cut off the end of a ribeye loin and are mostly pure fat. I thought I'd go with about 4 of these train trimmings, and when placed next to the chuck, I estimate that it will end up to be about 40 to 50% fat content in these burgers, with absolutely no apologies. Here I am cutting the meat into cubes that are just small enough to fit into the meat grinder. You could use a food processor and pulse the meat, but doing that is not good for the motor and can cause damage to your food processor if you're doing any sort of volume. Then I did the same thing with the ribeye fat. I tried to evenly disperse the fat amongst the meat chunks so that it will be well incorporated once it's ground up. Once it's all on a tray as so, this will go into the freezer for about 30 minutes to get very firm. Always semi-freeze the meat before grinding. It makes for a nice clean grind. While that's chilling out in the freezer, time to discuss our buns. We want a fantastic bun to go along with these insanely fatty burgers. And to do that, we start with 185 grams of milk that's been warmed to about 95 degrees, anywhere between 90 degrees to 110 degrees. 20 seconds in the microwave usually does the job, followed by 50 grams of plain white sugar, and then goes in 12 grams of dry active yeast. Mix that up well and let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes while the yeast activates. This is what it looks like when I just mixed it up. And this is what it looks like after 5 minutes. When I put the end of a chopstick in, you can see how it foamed up. This is those little microscopic organisms coming to life and eating the sugar in there. Now we can move forward to the next step, which is adding 10 grams of kosher salt, followed by 2 beaten whole eggs plus 1 egg yolk. Mix that up for a minute or 2. Then, while that's still mixing, take 460 grams of all-purpose flour and optionally add in 15 grams of dough conditioner. You don't have to use dough conditioner if you don't have it, but it makes for a nicer, more professional product at the end. Slowly add all that in increments. Add some, then wait 30 seconds to let the dry ingredients mix before adding more. After a couple minutes, all the flour will be in the bowl. Just let that mix for a couple more minutes. Then stop the machine. It should be gooey and oozy looking, not quite a dough yet. This is where you want to add 42 grams of softened butter. Then go ahead and restart the machine on speed 2 or 3 and let it run for about 5 minutes to knead everything into a dough. After 5 minutes, it should look like a sticky dough. Flour a work surface slightly and remove the ball of dough onto it. It will be very sticky at this point. Just use your hands and coax it into one large ball. Might have to fold it in on itself a bit and scoot it around in the flour to do so. Once you have a cohesive ball of dough, get a greased bowl and put it in. Cover it with plastic wrap or a kitchen towel and let this sit for 1 hour. During that 1 hour of rest time, we have a couple things we can do, starting with grinding the meat. As you can see, I had the grinding attachments in the freezer. You want everything as cold as possible because grinding creates friction, and we want a nice clean grind on this, especially as fatty as this is. I didn't realize that the top of the grinding attachment wasn't in frame, but there's not much to this. Just start taking the cubes of meat and fat and stuffing it down the grinder. The machine does the work. Just take your time and don't try overstuffing too much at once. And we are left with a very nice looking ground chuck. All the white specks are fat and it will almost melt in your hand, which makes it super easy to form patties in your hand with no effort at all, like so. Since we still have to finish the buns, this is a good time to get some patties ready and place in the fridge. Here's what mine look like. I made them large but thin so they will cook super fast at a high heat and have the results of a smash burger with a crust. The amount of white fat in this looks ridiculous and I love it. Now this is a good time to consider a burger sauce, starting with 1 egg. Normally I would use horseradish here, but I forgot to buy some, so instead a little bit of spicy brown mustard, which isn't spicy at all, using this as an extra binder. The juice of 1 lemon. 1 cup of avocado oil, or any neutral flavor oil will work. Stick blender down flush to the bottom, and blend. Make sure to leave it flush down for like 20 seconds before moving it around. When it's thick and creamy, basically a mayo at this point, add some ketchup. Yellow mustard. I'm putting in sweet relish since I have it, but using chopped up dill pickles are much better, FYI. A dash of Wash Your Sister sauce, a pinch of salt for seasoning, a few grinds of fresh cracked black pepper, some onion powder, and lastly, about time, right? Some garlic powder. Blend that all once more. Since I left out the horseradish, this actually tastes like Big Mac sauce at the end. Pop that bad boy into the fridge while we get back to the buns. which after an hour of resting should have by now doubled in size. Punch that down to get the air out of it before flouring your work surface again and turning the dough out onto it. Roll it in a little flour at this point just to make sure it's easy to handle because it's going to be pretty sticky. Now just cut them into even portions. Use a scale if you want to be exact. These are weighed at 100 grams each. My way of forming them into balls is to turn it upside down, grab the edges and bring them all together on top. Then grab the seam part with your fingers and gently twist the ball with the other hand. Then place them seam side down and roll it around a little bit until it's a perfect ball. Place them onto a silicone-lined baking sheet or parchment paper and let these rest again. I like to give them a quick spray with non-stick spray and then wrap them in plastic wrap and let them sit on the counter for about 40 minutes more. These will need that time to rest again since we agitated the protein development. 40 minutes later and our balls have doubled in size again. Paint them all up nicely with a little egg wash. That's a couple eggs and a splash of water all beaten well, and optionally sprinkle it with untoasted sesame seeds. You want to use untoasted here because they will of course toast in the oven, which is set to 375 degrees, and they will bake for right around 20 minutes until they look beautiful like this. Now give it that special touch by brushing them with melted butter right when they come out of the oven. It helps give them that shine you want and softens the outsides a bit. These look so fantastic. Now let them cool for at least 20 to 30 minutes before cutting into them, please. Now let's cook these damn burgers already. Hot skillet, patty down. Press hard with the spatulas. You want that crust to develop, and these things cook in like 2 minutes, so be aggressive. There's no medium rare here. There's just too much fat and it cooks too quick for this style. You'll notice the fat bubbling on top of it, so it's time to flip. For the first patty, you might have to work the spatula around the edges and make sure you don't rip it in half by accident. They're so juicy that they want to fall apart, and that's why it's important to have a good crust on it, as you will now see. Perfect. Gotta hit it with American cheese for these. The first burger is always hard to get a crust and to flip. Watch how easy the second one was to do, and it has a better crust. Spatula goes under easy, and boom. Look at that crust. I went with 2 slices of cheese on this one for some reason. Now let's build them. We have some nicely toasted, fresh, homemade buns here. I know I didn't show it, but make sure to always toast your buns, please. Some of that burger sauce goes all over the bottom. The patties go on, and simply enough, lid them. I'm going for quality over quantity today, obviously. The patties are so rich that it's good to have enough bun here to balance out the richness. Obviously, top yours however you want with lettuce, tomato, onion, whatever.
All right. These look phenomenal. A little bit of work, yeah. Is it worth it? Let's find out here. Man, that's good. Do I even need to say anything about this? It's about, I'd say about 40% fat in these. I'd say the only thing I would do different is make a bunch of them and stack them up, make double and triple cheeseburgers out of them. All right, guys, if you like this content, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit that.
Let's pause the ending for a moment because you know I can't just leave it at that, right? So the next night, I was absolutely craving the stacked version like I had just mentioned I wish I had done. This time, I wanted plain mayo on the bottom, and a good amount too, as if they need any more fat, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. A quadruple stacker here. Yeah, I don't recommend doing this all that often, folks, but every now and again, why the hell not? A little burger sauce on the top and the lid. This is an insane burger here. I couldn't help but give it a smash. It kind of naturally wanted to be a cross-section, didn't it? So just go with the flow, right? Look at that. I can't tell you how amazing this was. I made sure not to eat anything all day since this is about several days worth of calories here. We don't need to watch me destroy the rest of this monstrosity, but I just had to stack them, you know? Back to the ending.
All right, guys, if you like this content, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit that like button for me. It really helps the channel out. Remember, YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, you can watch all my content there. You can always hit me up on Truth Social. Until next time, guys, make sure to treat yourself right, cook yourself something good, get yourself some of these burgers, man. Save that ribeye fat. Thanks so much, guys.